We are under a fairly tight time frame because there are people coming right in after us. And some of these orders of conditions have just really been fully organized and printed out after days of hard work by Pat and Carol. So I'm going to ask the commission members to take just a few minutes, if you don't mind, to make sure that they have had a chance to look them all through. We saw many of them this morning, but not all of them. And so if you'll bear with us for just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Carol? Did my 125 sign get in here?
I believe.
It's already been done.
I mean, I'm trying to skim the new stuff.
I know
but-
you are, and there's a lot to skim.
Can she?
Yeah.
Is this somewhere in there? Because I'd like to see that as a bond.
Yeah, this is, planning board is doing it around all the stormwater stuff, and we're doing it around wetland protection, wetland replication.
Yeah.
But they're setting up one. So yeah, we can ask her.
Yeah, well, what I'm kind of asking, so I don't read everything over.
Oh, yeah.
Is this in there? That was definitely something.
The wetland replication part of it is,
Okay, a
but,
bond.
escrow account
Yeah.
for wetland replication.
Well,
Absolutely right.
not
all
that
of the follow-up and all
12,000, I'm
that
not
stuff
talking
will be
that.
geared towards
I wanna
that.
make
There's a
sure.
lot of stuff, actually, I'll have Pat explain that, but there is a lot of stuff
You don't
in
have
a lot
to
of
do the
areas.
stormwater if she's doing the
It's
stormwater.
not
Right.
really,
Right.
and it's taken care of by other
She
things.
gets replenished, like if they're
Right.
holding so much for stormwater, it costs more than that, then they
Right.
replenish. So,
Right, right.
We should full pile.
So we tried to remove a lot of the redundancies that they're gonna have to take. We're trying to be helpful to you.
what
And
types
they
of
can
things
do
don't
that.
beyond stormwater? We can ask her what that covers.
Okay.
Because for us, if it's 700 square feet of wetland replication, we can hold that. It's not a big amount, but we hold that for a few years.
Most of them
Yeah.
were appropriate and have been
they've been,
already addressed.
all these reflect the comments that they
Yes.
made,
No
okay.
flood protection, you get a really hold on.
So even this money thing.
Because there's no planning board money.
No, I
going on.
understand that. Well, I just want to be sure.
Yeah, but you know,
That I
we
don't know,
can
'cause I
direct a
hadn't seen the
question
amount
to
before.
Laura during this. We can ask her right off the bat what her plans are for that.
I like everything I see, but I want to be sure it's following through.
Yep.
So I want a big hunk of change to make sure it is following through. Since
Yeah.
money is the only thing that talks.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you do it right, you did it. Yeah.
I'll get Pat in a second, because I'm not sure of the answer to that.
What I'm looking for is the trees.
Number 110.
Orange pine.
Maybe number 110.
110. I'm looking for something on lots 3, 4, and 5, where that 250 comes all the way in. I'm not saying that they can't clear, but I'd like to see the 8-inch, the big trees left. Those 3 lots that are in the 250 of the vernal pool, which is our jurisdiction. It's not a no-build.
I agree.
And I would like to
Okay.
be able to mark those trees, the big ones, if there are any. There might
We
be
had,
none.
I saw that someplace in
See, this is why I don't.
Pat? Are these the only areas that involve us with the trees? These two?
There's conservation posts, there's the 50-foot, 125-foot vernal pool.
So
Conservation.
what she wants to raise are in the particular lots where they're inside.
and they're a
Each-
certain
they have to
diameter.
come back and file, even, and they're still not gonna be allowed to get within the 50 acres.
Right.
Yeah,
So is there, she can add something that says those trees will be saved? or-
Okay.
With it
That's
between
not in
150, between the 100 and the 50, I
Yeah,
mean,
there were,
they can be temporarily saved.
mhm.
When the individual houses come in, there's a tree line that's absolute, you can't get into the absolute tree line,
Mhm.
but within their own property, you know, if they're clearing for a house, they can clear. Like the initial clearing is just to get the road in.
Right.
So it's a narrower thing,
Mhm.
but if you buy the lot and you put the house in, then you're clearing some more trees, but you never get within the 50.
So that's what I think, wasn't that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Well, no, not actually, because the 125 for the vernal
Yeah.
pool, all right, that's right at the back there.
Right, and
But-
here's the tree line.
Yes.
Yeah.
But on 3, 4, and 5, okay, you do have the 250 for the vernal pool coming through the property. I mean, the houses are in there. I would just like to see that any 8-inch or larger trees behind the houses are left, that it isn't clear cut in that 250.
I don't know how you do that. If the end of
Well, you go mark the trees,
Oh, I understand.
Well,
and they leave big trees. There might be none there.
No, I
It might be
understand.
all scrub,
Yeah.
you know, until they actually go out there and do the lots.
and some of them may not choose to clear out to where they're allowed to. Some people are gonna want.
I understand that, but if they're going back here, I would like to see any
That's why
good-sized
I asked.
trees
Yeah.
Because he didn't think it is.
left, if possible.
Yeah.
Or come back and talk to us, or mark
Yeah,
them,
and
or
they're gonna
something.
have to file with us on each lot for.
That's what I was
their
waiting for. See,
NOI.
I think they have to come back anyway.
Right.
To file with us.
In the
on
past,
each lot.
we had that.
Yeah, each one has
You
to
know, like
file.
dear Comm.
Oh, I know.
All right.
I know. These do. Yeah.
Explain that to me.
You have the, this is really a notice of intent and order conditions on all the infrastructure, so the
Okay.
road, stormwater.
Yeah, okay.
And then each house lot that's within our jurisdiction, they have to file too. So it's not all the lots on there, but it's, if you're within 100,
Yeah.
you have to file with us. But you can never go further into it than this tree line, because that is,
All
you
right.
can never
I hear what you're
cut out.
saying, but
Yeah.
they're, you know, I mean, they're in the 100 there.
Yeah,
all
yeah,
right?
right.
These, they're out of the 50
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
100 and the 125,
Yeah.
but the yards are in the
Right.
250. It isn't that it's not a, you know, you can't touch it, but it still is our jurisdiction.
Right, right.
Okay, that I would just like to see big trees, if there are any, left
Right.
in this backyard.
Right, and I think.
I'm not saying, you know, to,
Yeah,
Okay.
you can place your houses
yeah.
where you have them, but if there's 3 or 4 big trees in
Right,
each
and I think,
backyard, I'd love to
I
leave
think we
them.
can say that, when they come in with their notice of intent, I
Well,
think we
would
can
they
say
come
that
in
to
and
all of
notice
them.
of intent on these because it's the 250? It's out of the 100 and out of the 125. That's what I
So
think.
then how
I'm
is it-
asking
And
you.
you're right, on these two it may not. I
Yeah.
think on the other ones it does.
So in these, we'd be asking people, even though it's outside the 100, could you leave some trees?
Because it is our jurisdiction, and we can ask for things, not that we're definitely gonna get them.
I just came up to just kind of peek.
Yeah, that I would just like to see big trees. I'm not talking
Yeah,
a little
right.
tiny thing, but I'm talking an 8-inch.
Back here?
Yeah, because that is the 250.
Okay, but this is all going to be graded. So,
Right, this is, well,
that
not
this,
initially
this,
though, for the initial storm.
well, maybe you should get Deb up here or somebody, because this looks like it's all going to be graded to create this,
They were gonna grade in the front,
Right.
at the last meeting, I remember correctly. And these would be walkout onto the land that is
Yeah.
existing.
I mean, I see a possibility to save trees on this, this, and this, because
Yeah.
there's no grading. There's limited grading back here. There's some grading here, but back here there isn't, here there isn't, here there isn't.
Right.
But over here, it doesn't look good to me, because there's this big,
Are you grading all the way backyard on 4?
I believe there is grading on lot 4 because we're directing
But
that
behind the house?
behind the house because we're directing that water towards the basin. So there is some grading.
I thought it was these three that
This is the,
Steve Ibis wanted,
5,
if that
6, and
matters.
7, or-
Well, I'm just saying, you know, if we got 250.
It'd be nice, but,
We have this, yes.
I mean, but the
This
grading
little-
doesn't
this, I
match
don't
up with
think-
that at all.
we're directing the water to the basin.
I think you can here, and here, and somewhat here, but here they're starting to grade over here. I mean, this is 129, and the old one is, this is 127 here. It's just a couple feet, but it's,
But they're gonna
you
get
know,
it.
it's enough. I mean, this is gonna be like 2 feet over here.
Yeah, it's more that lot than,
It's gonna be scooped out a little bit here, but to grade like that, the trees are gonna go.
What's the cut of that swell?
Sorry.
but it's not necessarily the case on these.
Nope, those are fine. Those I think you could definitely do it. And I thought that's where Steve was recommending keeping some buffer
Right, but-
area.
Yeah, but they're recommendations, but,
Well, everything's recommendation.
well, no, some are
Yeah,
required.
Some of
yeah,
them are,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well,
when we get
if
to-
you all feel it's important, I think the planning board could do it, but it would be great to have some support, and that Steve Ibis report, you know, that was paid for, it was, you know,
Yeah, I
somebody
think-
spent money on it, you might as well use the recommendations out of it.
What I think we said is, whatever you need to do for the grading,
Right.
do that initially. Don't touch any of the house lots that you don't need to touch. It looks like back in this area, they're gonna have to. But,
Okay.
but on these other lots, we would prefer that the individual comes in and files with us later. But.
They all have to file with you? I mean, does this guy have to file with you?
See, he really does.
Yeah.
Must be 100.
Yeah, it's way over here.
Okay, yeah, he has to honor this, but you're right, he doesn't have to follow on that. The
See, that's what
125 does. Well, then we'd be in the position of requesting that they try to.
So within
I mean,
the
I think the planning board is very open to your suggestions, even when it's outside of the buffer area, because it has to do with habitat, which is kind of
It is.
under you guys.
Although,
So I'm
if-
just putting that out there.
right, but if they're approving this plan,
Yeah,
then if they approve this, that means this could all go. I mean, that would be a change to what the proposed tree line is.
yeah. Yeah, that's okay. They can, I mean, it's a special permit, they can ask for things.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, you know, they'll have to discuss it with the applicant, obviously,
Mhm.
but it just seemed like you all spent, you know, some money was spent from somebody on that report, and it would be nice to kind of, you know, if people really believe that it's a good report and the recommendations ought to be carried out, then I think the planning board would be open to discussing it, you know, with the applicant and seeing if they can move
Mhm.
forward on it. That's really all I have to say.
Yeah,
True.
Thank you, glad you're here.
Okay. Lisa, have you had a chance to go over? And do you have any specific items that you want to question or any additions you'd like to suggest? I'm going reverse order tonight.
Under Natural Resources 110, I was just wondering who would be maintaining the trees in the buffer zone?
110?
Yes.
Natural resources.
This would be the required plantings under the planning board plan on the entranceway into the site that are on your road planting plan.
I thought they had a homeowners
If,
association.
once those are planted, who maintains those? There's like some buffer plants, cedars, I think, are planted along the driveway. So those get planted once the construction in that area is done. And then does the homeowner association maintain those, or how does that work? I don't know.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
At what point in time would that, are you talking about like forever or for?
Well, it just says here that in areas where planting are proposed along the entranceway within the jurisdiction of the commission, these plantings shall be installed as soon as possible. Trees then shall be maintained in this buffer area. And I was just wondering by whom, on an ongoing basis, who's going to be maintaining them?
Yeah,
I think during the course of construction, until the road is accepted, or until the construction is complete and the bond has been released because the road has been built according to the plans that have been approved, the developer will be responsible for that. At that point in time, there's probably going to be at least 18 months or 2 years where the plantings, if they've died, they've been replaced, and after that, they should be established where they should be in maintenance mode.
Okay.
the orders of condition only apply until the project is completed and signed off.
Usually when we ask for plantings, we ask for 2 growing seasons, and if they die the last day of the second year, you gotta replant them. You know, that's usually been our thing, that if you get 2 seasons and they're growing, they're gonna keep growing
Yeah.
unless, Mother Nature, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But if they die before that, they have to replant them. I don't actually see it in here. That's kind of a
No.
common condition.
Yeah, we have that in the stormwater wetland, the rain garden. They
Okay.
have to take and
Well,
they.
the rain gardens, but she's talking
Right,
about
right,
trees.
right. There, it wasn't mentioned specifically there, but it was in the wetland replication and the rain gardens that the plants have to take and be viable after 2
2
years.
full growing seasons under number 87. Any other comments from Mama Lisa?
No, thank you.
Bill?
I got the comments from the applicants today, and so this reflects a lot of the comments that were made today by the applicants, correct?
A lot,
Or some
and
of them,
there's a couple
anyway.
that there's still questions on, there may
Okay.
be questions there.
Because some of them, it seems like, or maybe I should leave the turtle thing to you. But it looks like there's overlap there. I think that everything kind of regarding the turtle nesting area, that's all gonna be done by National Heritage, right?
Yeah, we gave kind of conflicting information in our conditions to the applicant based on what Natural Heritage told them to do around the turtle area. They preferred to have the erosion control firmly in place and not have an area where people, turtles can get into the construction area and get crushed. So their requirement on that was a little different than what our standard ones are. So because they're out there on a natural heritage study, I think we gotta go with natural heritage.
Okay.
That was on page 4 of Paul's comments to us. Then there was some stormwater management ones that Paul and Deb responded back to. some of the things we had don't fit in with what they have to submit to for their SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. So they, in red, put down there what they've done to
Yep.
satisfy the SWIP,
Yep.
which satisfies stormwater management, so. That was on page.
Somebody put the little critters or something like that. That was clever.
Page 4?
So I'm interpreting your question, is that reflected in the final copy?
Yes.
Okay, that's,
And then-
Okay, so we've kind of eliminated the duplication of effort and
Yeah,
overlapping.
the ones with question marks that
theoretically.
we left open
Yes.
to
Yep.
decide tonight, but the other one was on the, a lot of times we said, must be checked every 2 weeks, a report sent in once, it's as needed. I mean, I think DEP, stormwater, and the SWIP have pretty strict timelines on these things, so if we put another layer on that above and beyond, sometimes as needed is the way to go. I mean, they're checking storm drains on the site as needed, it's to their benefit to keep them working, so.
And having spoken with you about this, on some of these things, some of this is gonna be the planning board, so I guess, we'll need to get, or I'll go to a planning board meeting, because some of this stuff is gonna be monitored and made sure that it's adhered to by the planning board, like the initial testing, we were talking about, okay, how are the basins working, or how the initial two storms, et cetera. That's pretty much gonna be at the planning board's end
Yeah,
of things.
more how they're constructed, were they constructed properly and the right elevations, and that was all in this drainage report. This was
Yep,
submitted, the drainage calculations, and it's during
Studied it
construction and
intimately,
ongoing.
yeah.
Yes, right. But I know that the planning board, I know Laura, they'll be hiring somebody to go out there to make sure these are being installed correctly.
and lastly, I think the applicant had said we were requiring a deposit, a bond, call it what you will, and the applicant's question was, why are we doing one with planning board and why are we doing one with conservation, but we still have this in here for conservation, so.
Right, and for a discussion. Penny brought up, what had been done in the past around this, and my experience on this is that planning board gets money from the applicant to go out and look at the stuff being constructed. We hold money in an escrow account to make sure that the wetland replication takes and doesn't die within the first 2 years. So we're doing two different things, but Penny had brought up a different type of an account that makes sure that the whole project succeeds. And I don't know how, we work with planning board on that.
What type, how much of a bond are you asking, will you be asking for, Laura?
Well, for the road construction, if the applicant wants the lots released from, there's a covenant that governs the sale of lots, that says that lots can't be sold until either the road is built or they obtain lot releases.
Yeah.
And to obtain these lot releases so they can sell the lots, they have to put up money for the construction of the road. So there's that, the road and the drainage and, any other kind of common improvements like that. So there's that type of a guarantee.
I'm looking for a dollar figure. Is it a good size one? I mean, I don't wanna see $10,000, $20,000.
No, for a road like this, it would be, what do you people think, maybe over 100,000?
I'm happy. Okay, that's,
Yeah.
Can I just
Yes, you may.
Can I briefly explain to you?
Yes.
From my experience, and I've done this a few years, when the lots, when at a point of progress with the construction, we go to the planning board, we request an engineer do a survey for the remaining work, not just of the road, not just the drainage, not just the water, but everything that's part of that plan, which includes all the plantings in it. And what they will do for the work that remains to be done, the engineer will do a survey, he'll do an estimate, and based upon the planning board's protocol, some towns it's 1.5 times, a lot of towns it's 2 times the amount that's there, and that amount will need to be placed either in cash bond, a letter of credit, or whatever the town requires. Typically, in this situation, what we would end up doing is we would want to get the majority of the work done, with the exception of the final coat of paving, and anything that could possibly be disturbed with the house construction. So the entrance plantings would be done, all the new retention areas, all the plantings would be done. So my guess would be that there would be possibly $100,000, maybe $120,000 worth.
But this is after construction has started and already into the, so there's nothing ahead of the curve, it's already into the process?
Correct. We would
Okay.
probably want, the typical procedure should be, you'd want to get 3/4 of the way through the project before you start asking for lot releases. There's a couple of reasons why you want to do that. The project isn't going to sell, it's not marketable if it looks like a construction site. So we want to get it to the point where the majority of the infrastructure is in place, it's working, and it looks good. Because if we have to put the plantings in, we might as well take advantage of the appearance from the road to be able to sell the properties. So there'd be, like I said, about 75–80% of the work would be done. The final coat of paving would be held out, probably catch basin cleanup, maybe grass that would need to be established. They'd go out, do an estimate, and then the planning board would have to vote on that amount. We would have to place it into a bond, or they could just vote to only release certain lots and not all of the lots in the subdivision. They would hold certain lots as security to make sure that work is done.
And to Penny's point, when planning boards don't get involved in this, if it's a 40B, then the zoning board of appeals or conservation has to make sure there's some kind of bond to make sure that these things get finished. But in this case, planning board is involved, and there's no 40B.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that there's a
Right.
healthy bond,
Yep.
to make sure this is all.
So are we suggesting that 122 stands or not?
I'm seeing a redundancy.
Yeah, that's.
Well, we
pretty
don't
much the
have to
point.
do it, I just
I
wanted
know,
to be sure that somebody was
I
doing
think your
it.
question's a good question, Penny, but I
Yeah.
think that 122 is a redundancy based on what I'm hearing. That if there is a sufficient bond, there's no need to have a second bond.
Oh,
The only
Okay.
issue here is that it,
this is just a little bit of money, and this is basically just to make sure that if things don't grow, that we have money to make sure they grow. I mean, I kind of see this as a totally different, this $12,000 is on just vegetation and,
Yeah, I think the planning board considers that as part of what they're gonna be.
That's what I was hearing, too, to
But
be
Oh,
honest.
I'm not-
wetland,
I didn't hear that, okay.
I-
yeah, but with the replication, they're not concerned at all with wetland replication, so that's why we hold money. And it's usually based on a square footage of replication, and then we hold that for 2 years to make sure.
so where does that come from?
After the planting.
Comes from these
From that
guys.
same, at that same time?
No,
Or-
that comes.
So that would be more
We set up an
towards this
escrow
end.
account.
That's-
Oh, okay.
That's an escrow account,
So
that's based
then-
on square footage,
This
right?
is what,
122 goes back in then?
Okay, my
Okay.
mistake.
yeah,
Okay.
Sorry.
But it can be reworded.
Right.
yeah, but it definitely
Okay.
is talking about.
Clear as mud,
I
okay.
think it's important to do something like this, as long as you've got so many places where you've got plants that are, you know, it's not like it's all gonna be
Susceptible.
grass.
Yep.
You're gonna have different species of plants that have to grow together and get established. It seems like a really good idea. If you don't do it, then we can do it, but you guys are all set up to do it.
Okay.
You've got your condition right there. It looks
Okay.
great.
Thank you, Laura.
I
Appreciate
just
it.
wanna be sure.
Penny?
Yeah,
You're up.
okay,
Yes.
just 1 second. I'm not finding the permanent posts at the vernal pool, the 125 at the vernal pool.
The conservation posts?
Yeah.
We might not have specifically mentioned
So
the
you
vernal
would
pool. We
wanna add
mentioned
those.
along the limit of cutting, because sometimes it's more than 125 feet away, because it's flexible open space design, they had to leave more areas. So this tree line in some cases is gonna be more than the 50 feet. So it's gonna, I would think that the conservation post would go on the limit of work.
So where it is below, then we would,
It can never be less than
Right,
50
okay.
or less than 125.
That's all, I want to be sure, because sad to say, we've had developments built, and then the homeowners come back and, or they start cutting. 'cause
Right,
There's nice
right,
woods
right.
behind my house, nobody's gonna notice it. I
Right.
want to make sure that at that tree line, you know, where the 125 is, that don't clear, because the critters have to have that 125, that is critical.
Right, and I think we can set that up so that we go out there before anything is cut. I mean, I guess there's gonna be a little cut to get the silt sock in, but maybe that's the point we do either the permanent markers or we tape it off so that it's real clear to any contractor that's out there. You know, I mean, and
Well,
that's-
Steve I thought it was a great suggestion. I had never heard of it, just putting the tape across
Yellow.
the trees. You know, let's face it, when they're up in a
Right.
big piece of equipment.
Yeah,
And that is just, to me, that's
right.
one of the most critical points, is to stay out of that
Right.
125.
Yeah, I think when they're putting down silt sock, they stake it out first, and I think that's the point we decide, okay, yeah, they're accurate. They got the erosion control in the right place, and then the erosion control line becomes the permanent conservation post markers, you know? Because there's no
So
cutting.
you want to make a motion to make sure that's added into these?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
It's in a couple of places, but it can
We
be
can add it.
more clear.
Well,
yeah.
it needs to be very clear
Yeah.
that there will be permanent markers.
Yeah, we talked about every 50 feet, and then a lot of subdivisions, they do them this way, and it's, you see where the silt sock is, and then the post is put right there. And, you know, then they still need to instruct people who buy the property that this is a requirement. Those little posts back there do mean something, so.
And my other thing was the...
Will that be in their deed?
I don't know how that's worded.
That would make it permanent.
Well, it isn't their property, number one. They don't own that, once you step over that tree line. Okay?
Well, they own out to the lot line.
Yep.
Excuse me, you're right. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. Yes, they do, but they won't be able to
They're
clear
constrained
that.
to do so.
But if
Yeah,
it was
you're
in their
right.
deed, it would eliminate any confusion.
It'll be in the subdivision order of conditions. So anybody that has to file, it'll be in theirs, but there are a few that don't have to file, that we somehow need to remind that there is a conservation post in your yard, and it's 125 feet from the vernal pool, and you can't do anything. But that's, when they're outside of jurisdiction, it does make it a little trickier.
We can try to incorporate something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, because it definitely with 4 and 5, definitely. They're
If
gonna be a
this
tree
wasn't
line.
flexible open space, they could clear right up to our buffers.
Oh, I understand that.
But this has a greater tree line.
Yeah. I just want to, sure, and,
Sorry.
so, and Laura, I believe, put me at rest that they're gonna ask, where possible, for the 8-inch big trees to be left.
I think on those 3 rear lots, I mean, it's really a decision that the board makes, I don't make, but I would recommend what Steve Ives
Yeah.
wanted, that, you know, unless you all really disagree with his report or you don't agree with that recommendation, I would tend to recommend that.
Is it 5, 6, and 7?
5, 6, and 7.
5, 6, and 7.
5, 6, 7, all right, 4, that's right, you
Yeah,
can't do
I don't
anything
think
on
it's-
4 because of the
Grading.
grading. I keep forgetting that, I'm sorry.
I don't think it's all the trees behind the houses.
Okay.
I think there's a setback there where they want to let them have some kind of a backyard.
I have no
It's
problem with
maybe
that.
halfway back.
But if there's a nice big tree, I mean, it will enhance your yard, you know? I mean, I just would hate to have it all clear cut. Like I said, until the lots are actually staked out and they start working, for all I know, it's all brush behind the houses.
Yeah, I think we do that. The other thing I was just, when we were talking,
Yeah.
there's really 2 different cut lines. There's the initial infrastructure, tree clearing. So, and I'm thinking that it's this one here.
Right.
So there's 2 sets, there's 2 sets of dotted lines. The initial clearing, they're not gonna clear as far as they could be allowed to. So then they can get their work done without clearing the whole site. Then when the lots are sold, then people are allowed to go further, but nobody can ever get beyond the final line. But like this whole area here will remain wooded. The
Yeah.
person who buys that house might want woods and not cut any of those trees, so there could be even a greater tree line. But in the old days, it would clear cut a whole site, and you have a mud bowl. This is
Right.
the minimum. I mean, there are a couple of areas where they have to be cleared to keep soils away from.
That I
wetlands.
understand, I'm just, trying to make sure that as these are sold off, that we protect as
Right.
much, have a lovely house, but you are in the woods, let's, enjoy it.
And we do see people who come in and cut and ask questions later. We
Well, yes.
Try to
understand
avoid
that.
that.
That's, I think those were.
A lot of people.
the Big ones. Except, are we gonna discuss the question markers?
Bring up any you want to.
What about you? Do you have anything?
No, I've been through them, so I have an advantage of seeing them ahead of time. And the questions that I would have raised, you guys raised.
Okay. What about this water quality monitoring?
111.
Yeah. Project shall be established.
Yeah, and
What's-
I talked to Pat about that.
What's the number on that one?
111.
111.
Bottom of page 12.
That's gonna be more of a, I guess, a plan.
Yeah, I mean, Laura, have you looked at 111? This is, I mean, we could maybe have Deb address it too, because they have to satisfy this for the SWIP, but this was drainage system maintenance. A water quality monitoring project shall be established to ensure that erosion and sediment controls are functioning adequately to protect the wetlands and assure the functionality and success of the detention basin. And I think it's during construction, is the water that's leaving the site clear?
Definitely included in the stormwater
In
pollution
the- Yeah,
prevention
it's
plan.
in the SWIP, and it's,
And they require inspections every 14 days, documented, they have to walk the entire site, all the erosion control has to be inspected. If maintenance has to happen, it's gotta be documented and done in a timely fashion.
yeah, the other thing is if you get real heavy rain when the site's first being constructed, we can go out and say, gee, erosion's holding up or it's not holding up here, you gotta, I mean, they're supposed to do it on their own, but we'll be out there if it's an exposed site in a heavy rain, so.
And the SWIP can be fluid too as you go through. If you find a situation that you have that your erosion control that was proposed isn't working, that's how you go back and say, okay, well, the solution here, maybe we need to have a double row of silt socks here or we need to move this and redirect the water so that it gets filtered. And those things get documented in the SWIP notebook so that they can be followed through during the construction process.
And that's on site in the trailer at the
Yes.
site.
Thank you.
Well,
I'm not quite sure if, I know we've discussed this at the meeting, that the water is not gonna raise, you're not going to affect from your catch basins, the wetlands, there will be no water going in or out of. You would not be pumping water in or out of, the wetlands areas. Everything will be going to the drainage basins.
And a temporary drainage basin in the
Yeah.
beginning, right?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
If any dewatering they're required under the SWIP to come to us and DEP regulations, they have to come to us if there's any dewatering planned. So, I mean, sometimes the temporary sediment basin gets filled with water and they need to find a place to dewater and they can't do it into the wetlands.
Okay. So we want
So
this
would-
there?
Yeah, so would you like to make a motion to add that one for the posts?
Yes.
Thing at a time.
I will make a motion that we add a condition of permanent posts and signage for the 125 buffer zone at the vernal pool. And I don't know if you want to do the 50-foot buffer for the wetlands. I'm more concerned about the vernal pools, but of course, the wetlands, I think, are pretty
Well covered, actually.
they're pretty safe. They're behind the vernal pool over here. Down in this basin, there's,
I would recommend that we might want to follow the approved tree line because that gives it a little more
I was
protection.
gonna say, we
Yeah.
mark it at the 125 when it's
when that's the tree line.
When it's further than the
Right.
tree line, right?
I know that with planning board, the flexible open space, I mean, these trees aren't just, we're requiring them, it's also under the bylaw, the town bylaw.
So, I mean, we could get more than 125.
Right.
Yeah. But on house 2, okay, you see where your 50-foot is, your tree line, and then the 50-foot is right behind there. Now, that particular lot, I would be very concerned about them going past there because it really isn't that much area.
It has to be marked at a minimum of 125.
Well, the
in this case,
125,
there's
see,
no
this
vernal
over
pool.
here is, that's vernal pool. This is just a wetlands,
Mhm.
okay? And your 50-foot is here. See how that 50-foot, you've
Mhm.
got the tree line.
Mhm.
They don't, I would be very leery of them encroaching back towards the wetland in time, if we don't have a permanent
Right.
marker along
Yeah.
that tree
In that
line.
case, that would be a good spot for the markers. The tree line and the 50-foot line are at the same spot, so that would be a good spot for markers.
Well, because of the size of the lot, too. I mean, that's gonna be very enticing for somebody. So I make a motion that we have the permanent markers and signage for the vernal pool, the 125, and the 50-foot buffer along lot 2 in particular.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anything else?
With that
Are these,
one.
are we assuming that these are already in?
Mhm.
They're here, then they're there?
Mhm.
Okay.
Excuse me, say it.
I just said if they're down here, then they are part of what
Yes.
the applicants are getting.
Well, we haven't moved to accept the rest of them yet.
Yep.
I want to make sure.
I just lost my,
All right, it's too late now.
Take, clean.
what did I do with it?
What are you
The,
looking
the
for?
new one. Did I drop it on the floor? This isn't it. This is my old one.
Take
I
your
was
time.
just looking at it. Ah, Penny's lost her mind.
That could be up for discussion.
Are we voting? No.
We're waiting for Penny to find her stuff here for a
Wait
second.
on any sign.
I've lost it. I don't know what happened. Did it fall down front? No. My order of conditions have disappeared.
Do you have noticed?
I haven't.
Question on the
I'm
CMP.
sorry. I found it.
You guys
Okay.
have gotten the approval for what you propose. You just
Anything
submit
else?
it when the whole thing is approved. They're waiting for the
No,
last
I'm
thing,
happy.
the
I want
planning board,
everything.
and we
Okay.
approve, and then you give them,
And
and
we
what
need
you've already
a
submitted.
motion to accept as amended.
I make a
Yeah,
motion.
you'll want this.
to
Yeah, so
accept
they,
the
they're waiting to see our
conditions
final
as
plan.
amended.
Because they're saying, yeah, it looks good, but until we know this and
14
that,
Back Road.
Second?
yeah. Because they've already agreed
They're
and.
not
Excuse
paying
me?
attention.
Okay.
You're not paying attention.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor,
To accept the orders with the amendment.
as amended. Yep.
As amended.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So everything with a little question mark is still.
That's still part of the
That's
game
it.
plan.
That's-
They were more for us to kind of talk to each other
Make sure
about. than-
we had them in our minds.
Okay, now.
And just anything related to a stormwater permit, we're responsible for the stormwater permit for this project under the town bylaw, and they've satisfied all the DEP requirements, and they'll be doing a SWIP. And I think, everything that we require under stormwater has been satisfied, so we should just include that in the vote.
Okay, so you want to do that separately, or just tuck that in
I've
there?
never been through one of these. Does that get done separately, Laura, there, or is it once?
The project's really exempt from it because it's a definitive plan.
'Cause they met- Okay, all right, then, never mind.
We're good. Thank you all for coming.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you
Do
very
you
much.
want
I'm
Watch.
looking forward to this being the golden project
Okay.
of the century in Scituate.
At least the west end.
The standard.
No,
The gold standard.
Give me the gold
I
standard.
would love to see this be one that we can say to people, go take a look up there. See what a nice job they did. They, lovely homes, but also kept the environment in mind doing it.
And as one who's from the total other end of town, the other end with the universe in Humrock, got to tell you, you really got my attention up at that end of town. So, it's good. Oh, yeah.
We want you to be the poster boys and girls for what, the way a project should be done
We're gonna adjourn.
right. Because without the environment,
Do we have to
we're all
motion
gonna
to
be in
adjourn?
trouble. I don't care how much money you have or how nice your house is.
No, I
We
think
don't
make a
keep
motion.
the environment going.
Okay.
Well, I think we put a lot of effort into it so far.
Well, you have, and I hope it
appreciate your input.
continues.
Yeah.